Hi, this is Catherine Morgan, and I'm the founder of the Depression Discussions, the conversations entrepreneurs need to have, and also of Point A to Point B transitions. Today, my guest is Brian King. I've had the pleasure of knowing Brian for several years. We met at a speakers group a long time ago, and I was immediately taken with his intelligence, his authenticity, and his razor sharp wit. I know that you're going to really enjoy meeting him. Hi, Brian.
Hey there, nice way to set the bar high there. Now I'm going to have to live up to it.
I have no doubt. So tell me a little bit about your background, personally and professionally, so we can sort of set the stage for this conversation.
Absolutely. My background personally is I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia. And for quite some time, I fit the profile of the autism spectrum, more specifically Asperger's. My graduation present from high school was stage 3 testicular cancer. And I spent the summer in chemotherapy. And because it was after graduation, my support system scattered, getting ready for college and going on vacation. So I had no support through that experience. And the support that I did have was a lot of dysfunction from my family. And I experienced a lot of very deep depression, suicidal ideation, anger at the world, bitterness. So when I heard from my doctors that I was in remission, I declared at that moment that if I was going to live, I wasn't going to live that way, being miserable and depressed and angry. So I committed to a life that was purpose-driven, that was deliberate, that was about supporting others in the way that I was not supported. So that's what led me into getting some therapy for myself with a social worker that really helped me make peace with some of those experiences and learn to think more abundantly again. And it was through my experience with that gentleman that led me into the decision to pursue a social work degree. And I got my master's in social work. I went on to start my own practice. I got married, have 3 sons, all of whom were subsequently diagnosed with Asperger's and ADHD. Right. So I had to become an overnight expert in helping them because the school system wasn't.
Ill-equipped, still ill-equipped.
Yeah, very ill-equipped. And there's pockets of competence, but they can be hard to find. And I became so proficient at not only helping my sons, but in being able to articulate their experience, which mirrored my own in many ways, that parents began to seek me out in helping them understand their child's world. And they were able to get better results with me than they were with their typical professionals who learned the knowledge but didn't live in that experience. So my social work practice took off like wildfire. And that was going great for many, many years until the mother of my children decided to leave us. And so I became a single father to my 3 special needs boys. And I went through another very deep depression, was very suicidal during that time, but knowing that I had to help hold it together for them kept me in the game. And I was able to get remarried. I've been married to my current wife for, I think, 9, almost 10 years now. And she's a childhood friend that I was able to reconnect with through Facebook. That's a Hallmark story of its own.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful story. People get all, googly and warm and fuzzy when I tell them. And within the past 5 years, I was diagnosed with 2 chronic conditions. One is Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is it's a faulty gene that is responsible for the production of collagen, connective tissue. And the type I have impacts my tendons and my ligaments. So they're too slack. They don't support my joints very well. So my joints give out easily. They often partially dislocate, including this joint here.
Right.
So when I write or grab things or try and open up jars, that can sometimes partially pop out and it hurts really bad. Ow. The joints in my feet partially dislocate. So I'm often having to pop those back in place. It makes walking difficult. My collarbones like to pop out of joint when I reach up to grab things from the shelf. And my younger 2 sons have been diagnosed with that as well. And last but not least, a year ago, after suffering since 2011 with unexplainable neurological symptoms. Last year, I was diagnosed with MS. So I have all of this, piled on top of each other. And because of that promise I made myself back in 1988, almost 30 years ago, that I was going to live a life of purpose, that was focused on service, that was focused on finding solutions, not excuses and problems, I've been able to weather the storms of all of these additional adversities. Not easily. I didn't just welcome MS with open arms and say, oh, isn't this wonderful? I had my pity party. I had the part when I'm angry, and I still have days where I curse it and say, this sucks, this is unfair. But after I have that moment, I say, all right, but this isn't going to get me anywhere. How do I need to face this in a resourceful way so I find opportunities and solutions and attract the people into my life that I need so I can accomplish my goals regardless of this stuff? So
actually, I'm going to stop you right there for 1 second, because I'd love you to talk about, I saw that article and video that you just did where one word sort of changes things, not unlike improv when we say yes and.
Absolutely. That's one of the little things that I use to reframe. Yes, this is difficult. Yes, I hurt. And what am I going to do about it? Right. Yes, this is the case. And I still have responsibilities. I still have my kids to raise. I still have clients to take care of. So what opportunities do I have to continue to do that, even though I'm in pain, even though I have fatigue?
Right. I think it's important to point that out to people, that you are not just your symptoms. You're more than that.
Absolutely. Because when you look at the entirety of your life, pain, fatigue, depressed thoughts, suicidal thoughts, they happen in moments. They don't happen in every moment. They happen in their own. Right. So when someone says, oh, I'm having a bad day, really? It's 9 a.m. How can you be so certain that your day is ruined? Tell me what happened. Well, this jerk cut me off, or I found out the person that was supposed to cover my shift didn't show up, or whatever. I said, okay, so you had a moment that didn't go the way you wanted it to, and you're upset about that moment. Right. So what are you going to do now? The next moment is still yours to shape. Well, I guess you're kind of right about that. Okay, so now that you've made that observation, where do you go from here?
Yes. I just thought it was, the right place to pull that out. And I think people will find that super helpful.
It's absolutely important to realize that at every moment you have the power to choose a different thought. That the first one that pops up, it can be your default setting if you live with some underlying depression or underlying anxiety. Right. Your default is to go to that negative place. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can choose to come back out of it. I feel depression every single day, but I don't have to feed it.
Yes.
I don't have to tell myself a story about how I feel depressed, why I feel depressed, why it's part of who I am, why it makes life more difficult for me, why it means that things stink. That story adds so much weight.
And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. It's not going to make it go away. You have a lot of stuff going on in your life. Anytime, I think I have something going on, I'm like, I got nothing compared to a lot of the people I know, and I'm all good. So that pity party stops here. I'd also like to, I think you might agree with this, underneath the depression or the anxiety or the anger or whatever, sometimes you can tap into joy. Joy is quiet. Joy is underneath. And, there's beautiful and there's bittersweet. And if you're looking for it, instead of just looking for the bad, you can also find joy.
Yeah, every time. Well, the seed of joy is gratitude.
Thank you.
So whenever you find things that you appreciate, that you don't take for granted, and they're all around you. Hey, my power's on today. My internet's working. So I get to have this conversation with you and serve your tribe through my experience. I could just say, well, of course it's on. I pay enough money for it already. It better be working. I could come from that place of entitlement, or I could come from the place of gratitude. And it's all around us. The sun is shining through the window. You know, winter hasn't occurred yet. So while I have this moment of wonderful fall-like weather, I can say, thank you for the capacity to experience this, for the fact that it's even existing. I don't need to understand why it's happening. I just need to be grateful for the fact that it is.
Yep. I'm a very happy mammal. I always say warm, safe, and dry. Warm, safe, and dry, I'm all good. Everything else is fixable.
Well, and even if you were wet because it was pouring rain outside, you still have the means to adjust to that reality. You know, I just have to take my umbrella out today, or I've got to wear my boots, and it's all good because this rain is nourishing life. Maybe I'm going to be able to buy cheaper veggies because it's not a smaller crop. It's more abundant because it rained.
Right. Nice. You told a story, a true story, that hit me to the quick when I read it. I didn't know about your attempts in when you were in your teens, and then your son, and then what happened inside your head as a trained clinician, a social worker, and someone who's experienced this, and then not really seeing or struggling with how to deal with helping your son. Can you talk us through that?
Absolutely. I attempted suicide when I was 15. I was depressed, low self-esteem, didn't fit in because of all my different learning challenges. I was really socially awkward. So I felt that aloneness anyway. And I'd gone through a bad breakup with a girlfriend that I was very attached to. And my parents were very dismissive. I really wanted to talk to them. I wanted their support. And they were going out for an evening or something, and I felt very dismissed. So that compiled the aloneness, and I didn't know what to do with all that pain. So I impulsively grabbed for a bottle of medication and downed it all. And after I did that, I thought, what the hell did I just do?
Right.
And I was with my sister. So I told her what I had just done. And I said, I just did this and I'm afraid now.
Right.
So she was able to reach my mother. She knew where they were going for the restaurant or whatever. And my parents called the doctor. They were told, give him Ipecac, the wonderful vomit drug. So on the way home, they went and grabbed a bottle of that, gave it to me. When I came home, and up came the pills.
Right.
And I subsequently connected with a therapist after that to process it all. So thank goodness I wasn't successful. And then a year ago, my oldest son, who's now 20, he has Asperger's, a lot of anxiety, depression, very rigid thinking. He had a hard time dealing with his transition from high school to adulthood and the added responsibilities and the fact that school was now difficult. And he was feeling like a failure and beating himself up, and he sunk really far, really fast. And he attempted suicide by taking a bottle of my blood pressure medicine. And fortunately, we learned about it. He was posting it on Facebook and to his friends, hey, you know, I love you all, but I'm out of here. And I was in the middle of working on my computer, so I was missing a lot of this. Next thing I know, and this is kudos to Facebook, next thing I know, the cops were knocking at my door when I was about to call them to come and check on him. And some of his friends had networked to call the police to come and check on him.
Wow.
So we got him to the hospital, and he started crashing in the ER. His blood pressure started dropping. They put some kind of a medication through his femoral vein or artery that forced his blood pressure to stay up until the drugs were out of his system. So he was in ICU for many days, and his nurse kept saying, he does not know how lucky he is. This is one lucky kid. Because he could have gone just like that. And he ended up inpatient for a while. Didn't do him a whole lot of good because about 6 months later, he tried again, different medication that fortunately made him very, very sick, but didn't put him in the same danger as the first attempt. He went inpatient yet again. And after the first attempt, I realized that I was really out of my depth in that scenario. I tried all my best tools to help him be less depressed, more positive, but he wasn't listening to me. In
Because you're his
fact,
dad, what do you know?
yeah, I'm his dad. Who the heck am I? It didn't matter. When working with clients, there's an entirely different dynamic than with talking to a family member.
Yes.
And that alone puts you in a place where you don't belong. You can't be a clinician with your own family member. You can only be their brother or their father or whatever it is. There's that lack of objectivity that really sullies the dynamic. And I discovered that this is a situation where I need to ask for help like I tell everybody else to do.
Right.
I need those objective third parties to step in and validate the stuff I've been telling him, but also call me out on my blind spots.
Right.
Because I'm really guarded, because this is my kid. I'm very emotionally involved. I do not have the objectivity. I may do things out of fear or out of some anger or out of ego that are not helpful.
Okay.
And I need the objective third parties to say, okay, Bri, you need to step back. Let us handle this. This is what you're doing. This is what we can offer. Let us do our jobs. And letting go in that way causes a lot of fear because you're used to being able to step in and rescue and protect. And I could do none of that. I had to shut up and trust and invite people into my life in a very vulnerable situation.
Wow.
To support me, support my son, support my family, and realize that not having all the answers is an okay thing to recognize. And then upon recognizing that, reaching out with humility and finding the people that do have the answers and letting them help you. And that's an important lesson for anybody. Being the expert in some situations doesn't make you the expert in all of them.
I don't even know where to start to pull that apart. I mean, it must have done such a tap dance on your head with your professional training and your personal experience, and it was your son. And what does that mean about parenting? I mean, you just must have had an emotional avalanche. I can't even imagine.
I processed until I was hoarse, pretty much.
Yeah.
I leaned on my guy friends in my mastermind. I leaned on colleagues. I talked at length with my wife. We had a lot of tears over it together.
Right.
I had to talk with my ex-wife who, it's really kind of hot and cold. With exes, there's a lot of baggage there. But she and I had long conversations about how we needed to be more on the same page, how she needed to be more involved in his life, how she could best support him. And just there were so many conversations and this coming to Jesus, so to speak, about where we were missing things, how we were in denial about some of his challenges and just how much support he needed and how much support he would need going forward.
Right.
And one of the big things that we needed to realize throughout the whole thing is that we couldn't pretend not to know certain things. We couldn't stand behind our ego at the expense of being there for our son. We had to be humble through this whole experience. And that has served me very well professionally and personally, because I now show up as a person who is responsible for helping people find answers, as opposed to being the one who thinks I need to have the answers.
Okay.
And that's a big shift from how I used to think.
Yeah, but still feeds into your mission of service very well.
I'm the one who continually, like the video you referenced this morning, I continue to refer back to, if you approach life with a solution-focused mindset, that your initial belief is that a solution exists, I just need to find it, as opposed to the solution exists and I should know it already.
Okay.
Because the latter is ego, whereas the former is much more childlike. It's the beginner's mind they talk about in Zen.
Yes.
I'm on this journey of discovery. I know that the resources are out there. There are people that know, and I'm eager to find this solution So I need to hunt and ask questions and meet people and research until I find what I'm looking for. Then when I do get it, I can take it in with gratitude.
Nice. Well, I am in awe of the quantity and the quality of content that you put out about ADD, ADHD, parenting, kids with this, and depression. Where can people find this fantastic information? What's the best way for them to be able to connect with you?
Well, the easiest way is go to themindsetking.com, or you can find me all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm very accessible. I'm happy to help people, so reach out and say hi.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for sharing from the heart like this. I know it's really going to help somebody who's completely spinning in their head and they're like, just to know that they're not alone and somebody else has been going through things like them.
It's my honor, Catherine. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, this is Catherine. Thank you for watching this interview of the Depression Discussions, the conversations entrepreneurs need to have. If you want to see more interviews, you can go to depressiondiscussions.com, or please join the conversation on Facebook at Depression Discussions. This is a labor of love for me, bringing this conversation out into the open and out of the closet. My other labor of love is my company, Point A to Point B Transitions, where I help entrepreneurs decide if they want to go into corporate jobs or fix their solo consulting businesses so that they work with clients that they like and make the kind of money they want to make without exhausting themselves and hating their business. If this sounds like you can schedule a 45-minute one-on-one complimentary consultation with me, and I'll help you figure out your right next step. This is Catherine Morgan from Point A to Point B Transitions and the Depression Discussions. Thank you.